Okay, so we have at the meeting John Sanborn, Matt Gagner, both members of the Board of Health. We have Gary Magnuson, our consultant, James Philbrook, our health director, and Andrea, not pronouncing your last name, Andrea. Himchek, who's our right-hand person. And we have some guests here. We have Barbara Zarowski, who's running for Board of Selectmen, and Peter Lancet, who's running for my seat in Board of Health. So just to let everybody know who's all here. So we'll open the meeting and I'll ask for a motion to accept the minutes of March 9th.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of March 9th.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
the minutes are approved. So old business, we'll start with Gary because he's pulled in a million different directions. The first thing on the agenda is the review of the history of drinking water contamination in the area of Berry Corner Road. And Gary sent us 3 letters today about, or maybe it's 4 letters. Is it, Gary? I'm
Yeah.
looking, 4 letters.
Correct. There's 4 letters, one for each of the 4 addresses on Berry Corner Road.
Okay, and these letters are addressed to the Board of Health, Gary. Maybe you want to explain it?
Yeah, so I didn't know what mechanism to use. We talked about a letter, a memo, a document, or something to put in the file for these homeowners, and more importantly, for the next homeowner, for the future homeowner. The board talked about a deed restriction and you guys decided against that. So we talked about some sort of a memo. So I did it as a letter to the board, unsigned, but it's just a letter. We can change it to a memo. We can change it to an official notice, however you guys want to term it, but I just wanted to get it across. In the RE section, we talk about notice of availability of public water. Then right in the first sentence, we say the intent is to notify owners and future owners that there is public water. And then we get into the weeds and a little bit of a technical discussion on the area, the testing that's been done by other consultants, how many times this, or what contaminants have been detected, 1,4-dioxin, and some other contaminants. In the third paragraph, we simply say your well has been tested, for example, 184 Berry Corner Road 21 times between 2002 and 2019. Then the next sentence says there were no contaminants detected above Department of Environmental Protection standards. And then we go into a next sentence that says municipal water was supplied to the area in 2019 and it's available if you want to connect. So it's a notice. We can change this dramatically. We can make this 20 pages and put data tables here. We can make it shorter, but I wanted to start with something. And all 4 letters are essentially the same. They just have a different number of tests at the specific homes. So if you guys want to act on this tonight, you can. If you want to read it, take a look at it, give me some comments, and we can adjust it, manipulate it, and have it ready for next time, whatever you guys want.
Okay, thank you so much, Gary. And thanks for the explanation. Thanks for the letters. So those letters came out today, and I'm not sure whether John and Matt have a chance to read them. And Andrea and Jim. But they look like they're pretty comprehensive. So what are your thoughts, John or Matt?
For me, Kathleen, I like it. I think it states very quickly what's going on in the area for anybody who's unaware. And the only other thing that I could add would be put something on there like, for further information, please contact Board of Health at such and such a number.
Yeah, it does say that at the bottom of the letter.
It does. Okay, perfect. So that's pretty good. I mean, and then if they want to go through 20 pages of test results and start doing some research, or just talk to Jim or Andrea or Kim or whoever, then they can contact the board. But I like it. I like it a lot. And it's as long as we can get the word out to whoever, just so they're not blindsided. That was my main concern right from the start.
Yeah.
That's
Matt?
it for me.
Thoughts? Thank you, John.
I feel the same way. I'm not a big fan of giving 20 pages of data either. Contact the Board of Health for more information, and then it's available. So, sometimes less is more. So I'm on board with the letter as well. I haven't read it, so I would like the time to be able to read it. So I would like to probably table this one more week, but I'm definitely on board with how it's going.
Okay, so we'll table it to the next meeting. Is that okay with John and Matt?
Fine with me.
I would like to. I'd appreciate it if we could, just so I can read it. But yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, wonderful. So the next thing on the agenda is recommendation to add volatile organic compound testing by EPA, and Gary answered that. I'm just looking for it here. Gary, do you want to address that?
Sure. All I did here is I took the Charlton well testing regulations, which the board sent to me, and just in the last line, I added volatile organic compounds by EPA method 524.2. And under the standard, that's parameter specific standards. So we can't list them because it's 85 tests. So we don't want to fill up the whole page.
Right.
But that's kind of a call for the board. If you want to add the volatile organic testing, which I would support, I think it makes sense in Charlton with the history. That's, I think, all you need to do, unless Jim wants to jump in if you need to put it in the actual written section of the well regs.
If I may, Madam Chair,
Jim,
if you're going to change your well regulations with Gary's expertise, you're probably going to have to clear our regulations through the Attorney General's office to assure that the regulations meet with the standards set forth and are correct. It's just for legality purposes, especially on something as important as well regulations. You can make any changes, but then you just make sure the Attorney General sees that they're precise and clear.
okay, so Jim, what would be the process to do that?
Board would vote that they voted to adopt the new changes to the well regulations as recommended by Gary Magnuson and his company, CMG. And then I would send a copy signed by the board or the chair, Kathleen, and the Attorney General's office would review it and say it's consistent and something we could put in place.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Thank you, Jim. Matt and John, I know you haven't had a chance to look at this yet. It's actually just a list of parameters in MCL and just numbers, and I'd be happy to just go ahead with this tonight, right now, and turn it over to Jim. What do you think, John?
I do have a quick question. So this would just be added to the well regulations for new houses, is that correct?
Pretty much. I
Jim, I
understand.
believe that's correct.
It's for new construction, yes.
New construction, yes, okay. Then I'm fine with that as stated.
Okay. Matt?
Gary, do you have a ballpark dollar value, what that's going to increase? Is it a couple $100, $1,000, $5,000? What, do you know what the additional cost might be to a homeowner?
I do. That cost should be under $150 for that test, generally around $100 at most labs.
Okay,
So
so
to me, I know every 100 adds up or whatnot, but it doesn't seem obnoxious at this point. I would be okay with it.
okay, so John and Matt, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the additional well testing regulations as proposed by Gary Magnuson at CMG to our existing well regulations.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and any discussion? Jim, you'd be able to take this motion and send a letter into
Yep.
get it approved.
Yeah, once it's, because of well regulations, it's something that really needs to, changes like that. They don't want municipalities arbitrarily adding things that may be out of sorts. So to do it correctly is after the board's approved it, and it's kind of, it's just like a, they'll take a brief look at it to make sure it's consistent with, regulations throughout the Commonwealth, and then approve it and send it out, and it would become part of, the law within Charlton, at the authority of the Board of Health.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Jeff,
I didn't know
can
that.
I just ask?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
So, and I'm not sure the process, but if we're gonna have a change in regulations, do we have to post that in the newspaper for 2 weeks? And then have a hearing on it before we make that in the regulation, Jim?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, Matt, I checked with Cheryl Sabara. She said at any normal meeting at the time of posting, the only thing with well regulation is that it comes a part where the Attorney General would have to look at it, just make sure it's consistent and not have any inconsistency with the rest of the Commonwealth, and stays within the guidelines of well regs, VOCs, or whatever the board decided. They just want with the Attorney General's stamp on it and the board's approval first, and the Attorney General, then it becomes are part of a written well regulations that would be part of the Charlton Board of Health. It's a
Okay,
formality.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Hi, Matt.
Okay, and the motion passes. The third item, Gary, actually the fourth item that you're going to get back to us on was making recommendations to advise residents of periodic well testing or well testing at the time of property transfer. And this is an issue we've been dealing with for a while. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
So at the request of the board, we did do a little research. There's not a lot of documentation out there for other municipalities that are doing that. I think it's a recommendation. In regards to Jim Philbrook's comment on going to the Attorney General on the well reg changes for the testing, it might be prudent to make that as a recommendation in the written section of the regulations that the Board of Health recommends testing periodically and put a timeline or at the time of transfer. I don't think you can mandate it, and I'm not sure how the board actually wants to handle it. So we've done some research. I haven't found anything definitive in any other towns. So I'm kind of at a loss as to what, I think it's prudent, but I don't know what mechanism you should use to address it.
Thanks, Gary. Matt or John, any thoughts?
I don't think we'll be able to police it.
Yeah, other than a notice. But I do like the wording that that Gary uses, that we recommend it, and not only at the time of transfer, but also on a periodic basis every year or two or whatever. I don't know if something exists out there, but just so they've got a notice.
So right now we're just a little bit off the subject. We're looking at the recent sales, and we're notifying, well, Andrew is notifying people in the areas like Barry Corner who might need to know that their water could be compromised, that they should contact the Board of Health to get more information. But that's not for any transfer. That's just for the transfers in the areas that we know are problematic. So what do we do about any transfers, I guess, is the question that's in my mind. Want to table it?
I'm up for a notice to just make them aware of it, but I don't know how we could police it.
Yeah, I don't either. But I don't have a problem with the notice. And I think what we're seeing is half a dozen to 10 sales per week on average for transfers. Is that right?
Yeah, maybe 4 or 5. Barbara, are you raising your hand?
I have a question.
Barbara's in the
So, so that's only us portraying to the Berry Corner Road, right? The contamination.
No, we've got other parts of the town that have contamination also, and some people in those roads have tied into the town water, and some have decided not to.
So is that disclosed? Are the real estate brokers disclosing that to the potential, buyers or
We
like?
we would hope, but we can't. Like John and Matt just said, we can't police it. We can't mandate it.
Yeah.
That they disclose it. They should disclose it, but it could hurt their sale too, so maybe it's not in their best interest to disclose it. I don't know.
Could that be disclosed on the town's website? People usually look, the people buying, they usually look, or moving to Charlton or any other town, I did look into the, town's website to see, any helpful information.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Well, I think it's a good thought, and maybe we can talk to Andrew about it and brainstorm a little bit about it some more, because I do agree people should be made aware that they should check out their water if they're not tied into.
Mhm.
So,
I think so. I would not be happy if I would find out after I bought it.
yeah, no, exactly. Gary?
Thank you.
If it'll help the board, I can draft up a really short notice that you guys can talk about at your next meeting that talks about this concern, and as recommended by the board, would recommend testing at the time of transfer or every X number of years. Just give you something to talk about and figure out how to.
That'd be one. Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great. And meanwhile, if we can come up with any other ideas. Okay, does John, Matt, what do you think?
I'm fine.
Yeah,
Next meeting is fine for me for further discussion.
Okay,
Same here.
all right, great. So next thing on the agenda is the PIP discussion with the questions about the Stony Brook neighborhood, and Gary kindly wrote up some very detailed questions which he sent off to the CMG, I think.
LSP.
LSP. And so you probably have copies of those. If you don't, I can read them to you, but they're very, want me to read a little bit?
Sure.
Okay, so the questions he's sending off to the LSP, could ExxonMobil provide a site plan based on Figure 1 and the PIP plan that illustrates the following to help the public better understand the extent of work conducted by ExxonMobil? A, all public water lines installed between 6W and Gould Cemetery Road, including all properties connected to public water. And B, all private and public wells or Sentinel wells sampled between 6W and Gould Cemetery Road over the past 15 years. And C, the maximum MTBE concentration detected and the date of detection in all wells, private, public, Sentinel wells in the area between 6W, Gould, and Cemetery Road over the last 15 years. That's a report I would love to see. That's a wonderful question. Any chance we'll get that answered, Gary?
Well, as you heard from the PIP meeting, ExxonMobil through their LSP Forensic has to answer all of the questions that are asked. I don't know what the response will be, but I thought that would be a very helpful tool for the public to look at to understand that area much better. The Figure 1 or 2 that they provided was pretty good. It showed 6W and it showed all the work done up in the Gould Cemetery, but I think the board and the other concerned residents want to know what's going on in between there and peripherally is there areas not looked at. So they have all that data. I mean, it depends on how detailed they get, but they certainly could provide it, but they might say, it's beyond the scope or we can't provide it, but at least we asked the question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Okay, the second one is, can ExxonMobil predict a future time in which wells may achieve a level of non-detect using the 3 to 4 years of recent data to create a trend line for the church well and the 2 homes on Gould Road with elevated MTBE, the ones discussed in the PIP meeting? Another great question. And the third one is, during the PIP meeting, it was mentioned that MTBE contamination of Gould Cemetery Road area was unexpected, in quotes. Residents of the town of Charlton are concerned that given the rural area nature of this town, that other areas of, quote, unexpected MTBE contamination may exist. The town of Charlton is concerned that the DEP required 500-foot sampling radius may be insufficient in this rural area to assess this contamination condition. And that's a really good point, because the houses are so far apart out here as compared to a more intensely populated town. Is there any way to request additional sampling for these contaminants beyond 500 feet from documented impacted well? Does ExxonMobil or DEP feel that the contamination found in the area of Gould Cemetery Road meets the DEP definition of substantial release migration? If so, would this condition facilitate sampling in excess of the 500-foot radius? So those are the 3 questions that Gary has forwarded on. And there was a 4th question by Brian Beck, who's on in that area, to get Cemetery or Gould Road, and he was going to submit it himself. So is there anything else? What are your thoughts, Matt and John, going forward? Matt or John?
I'm waiting for Matt to speak.
Okay, I asked my questions in text via the PEP meeting. So the questions that I had, I'm kind of waiting for the response to come out when they answer all the questions. And basically my question was, what was an additional means of a permanent solution if a public water supply wasn't achievable?
Okay. So you've already forwarded that on, Matt. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, mine was, in the chat when we had the PIP meeting, you're allowed to ask questions, and they emphasized if you ask a question, any question that was in the chat room that was there would be answered. Some more, she kind of grouped the questions together, and that was one of the ones that she grouped. She grouped it a little differently, but it was in the same general flavor of what the question was. And you know, the response was dodgeball. He said, we're putting the cart before the horse. We're not anywhere close to talking about that. Was the result we got at that PIP meeting.
So is there a chance that that'll be ignored? Gary, what are your thoughts?
Well, again, they're obligated to answer all the questions. And as Matt just said, dodging a question is answering it. They can say, we don't have the results for that. We're not prepared to answer that. Keep in mind, this whole PIP meeting was all about the process of PIP and how people are going to get questions in and how there's going to be involvement. It was not really designed to be a technical meeting. Their next meeting will be much more technical, we think, because that will occur after they have some additional testing results, and they, I believe, will provide a little more of an opinion on, as Matt said, how are they going to get, or how do they feel this situation will get resolved?
I guess what I'm wondering is if Matt's question will be answered because it was in the chat.
I think it absolutely will.
Okay. All right. Okay, so are there any more questions that we can think of that we want to forward? I think we still have some time, right?
I believe the date for final comment is April 4th.
Okay.
That was my recollection. April 4th was the final date for that.
Okay, so So are there any more questions that we can think of right now, or we want to just keep that date in mind and forward those questions as they come to our mind? John?
No, I think from what I've seen, I'm happy with what we've got so far for the questions. I didn't have anything specific other than what I've heard at this point.
Jim, did you have any questions beyond what Gary's done? And
No, I think the process has been started. Like Gary said, I think the LSP will get more involved in technical questions. But any question asked should be answered. And like Gary said, sometimes if you don't ask the question, they won't answer it, and just not by responding is not really an answer. But that's the way they get around stuff. I've had the meetings with Forensic Environmental in the past with DEP, and we've asked some tough questions, and we're still asking tough questions, but the PIP is the right way to go. And I think to continue that process allows the residents to have a say. And I think it's very important.
okay, great, thanks. So, so we'll leave it as it is unless anybody comes up with more questions before the 4th, okay?
Kathleen, one quick comment.
Yeah.
I would like to add that anybody in the public can submit any question at any time up until April, I believe it's the 4th. If you guys want them to come through me, I can certainly do that. Or if residents want to submit them directly, I'll make sure that Andrea has the LSP link to Forensics LSP, because the questions have to be emailed to him.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no more on that, we'll move on to the PFAS free sampling, well sampling. And Gary sent us some material on this, and I also looked some up. And basically, there's a form that homeowners can use to request DEP to get involved in their well sampling. And I think there's 80 towns in Massachusetts where over 60% of the residents are not on public water, and Charlton is one of them. So there was quite a bit of problem with this in Dudley, which Andrea filled us in on, and which I'll just read you a little bit about PFAS. I keep saying PFAC. PFAS is a group of man-made chemicals used in a variety of consumer products and industries throughout the world. They've been used in some firefighting foams, a number of industrial processes, and to make materials that are resistant to water, grease, and stains for use in carpets, clothing, fabrics, for furniture, paper packaging for food, cookware, leather goods, ski waxes, and more. Because these chemicals have been used in many consumer products over the past 50 years, most people have been exposed to them. They've been found to seep into surface soils, groundwater, and surface water, and thereby contaminate drinking water. And I won't go on with it, but basically there are a lot of good reasons why people might want to have their well tested. Gary, do you want to add to all that?
Sure. So Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, in cooperation with UMass, has a program, whereas in these 81 towns, they are looking to get about 40 homes in each town, private residential homes, to sign up for a program where a free sample kit will be sent to the house. The homeowner will physically collect the sample in accordance with the protocol, which can be seen through a YouTube video and written documentation. Sample will be analyzed by a certified lab, and then the results will be sent back to that homeowner and to the Board of Health. Those results will become public. Anybody can look at them if they want to. Basically, Mass DEP and UMass are trying to get some data in the rural parts of Massachusetts. Most of the data currently available for PFAS testing is in public water supplies. So that's where a lot of the data is, but they want to get more.
That would happen in Dudley, right?
Dudley is one of the public water supply wells that does have the detections.
Right.
The thing that's really interesting with this is it's an emerging contaminant, so it's new. We don't know a lot about it. There are certainly health risks that people much smarter than me have determined what they are. The standards for testing here are 1,000 times lower than normal testing that we do in the environmental field and in the drinking water field. They're in parts per trillion, whereas the contaminants that we were just talking about up in Gould and Cemetery Road, we're measuring in parts per billion. So dramatically different concentrations that do have some health risks. At 20 parts per trillion for a combination of 6 of these standards or compounds, and 90 parts per trillion. So residents can have the testing done, the results will come back to them. If they're below 20, not really a concern. If they're above 20, could be a potential concern. If they're above 90, the DEP may get involved to make sure that appropriate controls are put in place, i.e. bottled water and possibly treatment or connection to public water if available.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you very much. So Senator Goby had forwarded this out. She's involved in getting people signed up. I'm just not clear on what we should do, the best way forward here. And I was wondering what Jim would think or Matt or John. Jim?
Sorry, I was answering a COVID question from the clinic. Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Let me get John to answer it first then. And
Yeah, I guess I have a question to start. You said about 40 residential wells per town are being looked at, targeted to try to get, I'm assuming, a geographically representative sample, like a grid pattern throughout the entire town. So you don't want to have necessarily 6 people on the same street all getting this. So that's my understanding. But the next question is, how far along are we on the signups for this? Do we know that of the 40 or so houses for within Charlton?
I don't personally know, and I don't know. Jim, have you heard of anybody signing up, or do people even know about this?
I'm not sure. It's this is the first, Gary just mentioned it. It's the first I heard of it. I know that aerial mosquito spraying has been related to some studies that may have the PFAS chemicals in them, but I have not heard about his UMass study. The first I heard of it, so I wouldn't know anything about it.
Okay.
So Matt, have you heard anything about it?
No, I haven't, but if we're trying to target 40 houses and be part of the contribution from Charlton, I mean, I think the best method for that would be to throw it up on our website and, just let them know that we are, trying to, get a certain number of houses that want to get their water tested if they want to be part of that program. So I think as far as a method to try and get it out there, I mean, we'd at least get it at a minimum, put it on our website.
That's a good idea, Matt. So I'll get the information to Andrea. There's a fairly short application that people can fill out on their own and send it in to DEP. And so we'll start there. If anybody disagrees, is that okay with everybody?
I'm okay with it.
Okay,
I'm on board.
great. All right. So I'll forward the information I have and the information Gary sent to Andrea, and she knows about it anyway. She did tell me that if a homeowner wanted to do this test themselves, it would cost around $500. So this is certainly a big savings if DEP will do that. Okay, what else? COVID updates with towns and schools. I do know that we have had 31 cases from March 18th until today. Before that, we had 38 cases the week before. We're about 2.5% positive and we're still yellow. So we're still troubled here. Jim, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Kathleen, we had 21 cases that came in today. So we're up to 860 something, I believe, approaching towards 900. I think 30 or 40 short of that. There have been a lot of cases, and I deal with this every day with schools. We've had lots of issues with schools, and the daycares are mandated to report to me. So all day I handle cases with the school nurses and with daycares of close contacts, quarantine and isolation issues. But the schools, I know there was a recent article in the newspaper. Certainly with the change in the 6-foot distancing to 3 feet now, if you were sitting in a class that anyone around you was certainly going to be considered a close contact. And that's what they're going to the 10-day isolation rather than the 14. And that's going to keep in line with CDC recommendations. But I think that the schools, in their effort to get back fully open, have run into some issues with football, hockey, soccer. The sporting events have also caused some issues that we're dealing with, which for us to make a lot of phone calls. And as you know, our office already receives a lot of phone calls and makes a lot of phone calls. But I think as anything, as we get more and more people vaccinated, I believe that we'll see a downturn in our cases.
All right, thanks, Jim. And Gary, I wanted to mention that you're certainly welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go because this isn't your area of expertise, and maybe it is, and we don't know that. But you're please stay or go as you like. The webinar today with all the boards of health in the state said that the sports guidance is changing, with indoor being 50% attendance, but just youth. If you're over 21, nobody can go. Outside, it was like 2 adults per child, but now it's up to it's not limited, but everybody does have to practice social distancing outside. Nature walks are increased from 12 to 25. Youth programs must maintain rosters and share with the local boards of health if there's a case. So every youth program that they have should have a roster of who is there. Golfers must maintain face covering if golfing with others, and I'm sure my husband's not going to like to hear that, but that's the way it is. And if they're playing alone, they don't have to wear a face covering. In tennis doubles, they have to maintain face coverings, but not singles because they're too far apart. The other thing they said was that if a lot of people are missing their appointments for their second doses and they're kind of frantic to get those, and they should go to mass.gov where there's an ability to make an appointment or call 211. So that's kind of a mix of the things that I took out of that hour-long session today. And also the other thing that's important, this is getting on to but fully vaccinated means 14 days after the completion of the second test. So, or if it's Johnson & Johnson's one test, but a person is not fully vaccinated until 14 days afterwards. So any other thoughts from Jim? I've sort of mixed in the vaccine updates here with the COVID and school updates. Because
Hi,
they're all,
Kathleen.
Jim?
Madam Chair, I was sorry, but the vaccine clinic is asking me questions here. They had some issues today. A lot of people showing up that just showed up, and they want to apologize. But anyway, the meeting today emphasized about camp regulations. Charlton has a specialty camp in Charlton. So we definitely have a lot of camps. So the regulations, we didn't think would be into the second year of this pandemic and with children's camps. And so they're going to follow certain cohorts and have to have 2 medical advisors. But the meeting itself was a step forward. Kathleen. I think they gave us some good information, at least for my point. Going out to do all the camp inspections this year. They really set some strict regulations that'll have to be enforced. But I did get a lot out of today's meeting, and it was certainly informative for once, and I liked it.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes the questions and the discussions are things that have absolutely nothing to do with us. So under new business, we have department head reports. Jim?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Kathleen noted, today we had our usual meeting, which is on Tuesday at 3 and Friday at 9 with the DPH to give us updates. Or sometimes they give us data. An epidemiologist, Dr. Katie Brown, would speak. I'm just getting back to full steam here, and thank you for everyone for your support. I had a medical issue and was down and out for a few weeks, and the girls in my office did a tremendous job, and I appreciate having them. So thank you for that. So I'm trying to get to 100%. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. I am part of the Safe 2.0 Coalition, which has been awarded $10 million for local boards of health. So we're looking to get a $300,000 grant along with towns that surround us for shared services. And we're looking at getting certain specific things that would actually help the local boards of health in Dudley, Southbridge, Auburn, Charlton. But the only problem with the grant is if you sign up for the $300,000 grant, then you have to keep that person on for 3 more years after that. And then the municipality would get hit with some of that. So I'm not sure if that, we're not looking for any more services that would, we have Kim being trained. And I think that the shared service is more about tobacco, more about other issues that we may have. And the person would be located in the town of Webster under their umbrella. And say we did need, it would be more like a mutual aid situation. But I'm trying to keep us out of the realm of really, we want the money in this area, so that's why we're part of it. But they made it so you had to kind of regionalize in a way, and I wasn't totally 100% for it, and it's going to be very difficult to get someone. So we decided to get someone who may handle our tobacco issues in our municipalities, and that would be paid for by the grant. And we're just trying to find out from CMRPC, which would be the facilitator of the grant, the 3 years after that this grant will give us the $300,000 a year, is that what would we have to contribute? And I spoke to Andrew about it, and that's not something he was too particular about, having the town sign up and be obligated for, actually 4 years down the road for 4, 5, and 6 years with extra money. So that's why I'm going to concentrate on the staff I have and get Kim fully trained. She's been helping me. We did housing inspections. We have lots of food to do and camps and stuff. So I think we have a talented staff, and that shared services thing is probably going to assist the larger towns like Southbridge, Auburn, and maybe the smaller towns like Holland and Wales that don't have any services at all, but not necessarily work the best for Charlton and some of the other towns like Oxford and stuff. So just to keep you updated on that. But it's a lot of money they handed out, $10 million for local boards of health, but there's a catch to everything. So I just wanted to keep the board updated on that, whether you had any questions about it or not. But certainly it's in our EDS plan for emergency dispensing site, we've not enacted that. But if something happened with Harrington, we'd certainly be open our clinic and vaccinating people. The problem is we can't get the vaccine because we became part of the coalition that's working with Harrington to strive to move forward. Our CERT team is there. We have 4 or 5 nurses that are working there for us that are being paid through the CARES Act, and they're doing a great job. So there's a lot of other stuff that goes on that certainly, but the Safe 2.0 grant, I'm not sure if anyone's heard about it, but that's the $10 million that was awarded to all municipalities, but there's a lot of paperwork to do, and we're working on that right now. So I will update the board at our next meeting.
Well, thank you, Jim. Does anybody have any questions for Jim on that whole issue of the 10 million, how they want to spend it? It's nothing's easy, is it? Okay. Well, we're coming to the end of our meeting. A couple of things I wanted to mention with the vouchers for Household Hazardous Waste Day. Andrea and Kim are giving those out when people come in and ask for them. It saves everybody that comes in $30 for disposing their half a car of household hazardous waste at Casella. And at the same time, they are allowed to bring yard waste also. And speaking of yard waste, we are in the Town Sustainability Committee, which I'm on, is instituting a program in the two Saturdays in April and 2 in May, where you can bring yard waste to the DPW. And so we're kind of happy about that, because a lot of people don't have any place to put their brush and their yard waste as they clean up. And you have to be from Charlton and you can't be a contractor. So we'll be there checking IDs, and that'll be on our webpage too, and on the town website. So I don't have anything else. John, do you have anything?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, and Matt?
Just a reminder, Kathleen, that after the DPW has their weekends with that, I am working on a program that would be free to the residents of the town of Charlton to continue to do that into the fall and whatnot. So that's still to be continued, but I don't think it's going to end after those 4 events. I think we're going to be able to keep it going.
That's wonderful, Matt, because I'm sure everybody wants to get out there and work on their yard this year. Sure. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions for any of us? Barbara or Peter or Nancy? If not, Jim?
I just want to tell Barbara that, and I did see your sign out. I live on Gulfwood Road, and I was riding around today doing inspections, and I saw your signs in front of houses, and I said, I don't know that person, but now I know you. I feel like I've met you. So good luck.
Thank you. Thank
And
you
the
so
same-
much.
And same with Mr. Lancet. I did see your signs out today as I was going about my ways, and so they're out there. So
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. That was a great meeting. I learned a lot.
Well, thank you for,
Never a dull moment with the Board of Health, believe me.
No, never with Kathleen, I'm sure.
so Nancy, you came in late. Did you want to add anything or ask anything? No? Okay. Matt, anything else from you?
Nope, just going into Mr. Sushi as soon as this meeting is over. So I've got nothing.
Okay. So when do you want to have the next meeting? You want to make it 2 weeks? What do
Yeah,
you-
that's fine. I'm fine with 2 weeks.
Matt,
Yep, great.
so 2 weeks is April 6th. So hopefully nothing exciting will happen between now and then. And
As long as Jim doesn't get sick or anything, right?
no,
Don't overwork yourself, Jim. That's my orders to you.
I will take them, and I take them not lightly, because it's the truth. I have to make sure that I know my staff and your staff is doing a great job, and I can delegate, and they can handle it. So it's good.
Well, they can. You just got to turn off the phone, I think, after midnight so you can
Yes.
get a little
Well,
sleep.
The
And-
police like to call at 3 in the morning.
turn it off on the weekends too, Jim.
No, it doesn't work that way. You can't do that. I'm not that way.
I don't know, your poor wife. Thanks.
I've got to make a call. So everyone have a good evening. I have to call the
Bye, guys.
site.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Okay, good to see everybody. Bye.
You can give me a call now if you want.
Okay, so the meeting is ending at 6:54.